This is Morning Motivation for Educators on the Bee Podcast Network. Learn about all the shows at beepodcastnetwork.com. You'll hear from a variety of formal and informal educators who help put this podcast together. If you'd like to contribute your voice to the show, please go to morningmotivationedu.com to apply. I am Karen Dudek-Brannan. I was a school SLP for 14 years where I specialized in language literacy and executive functioning and also held various teaching, leadership, and research roles. Now, I am the host of the De facto Leaders podcast on the Bee Podcast Network, where I help school therapists, teachers, and administrators be leaders on their school teams, no matter their job title. In my work with related service providers, so this could include speech pathologists, social workers, psychologists, counselors, so really those people who are providing those supplemental interventions and those specialized services for kids in the schools. One of the things that comes up is the topic of where their role fits in on the school team and what is and isn't their job. Now, with speech pathologists specifically, I will use that example because I am an SLP myself. One of the common complaints that I get from SLPs working in the school systems is that they have to attend trainings and do activities that they don't feel are relevant to them. And I think that this is relevant to really anybody on the school team because, as you know, if you're in a school setting, there are a lot of different things to consider when it comes to what's going on in the building and the district. And it can be easy to get frustrated when you have to go to a meeting or attend some kind of a training that you don't feel is relevant to your discipline or content area. Now, I am not someone who likes to promote unproductive meetings, but having the attitude of that's not my job isn't the most productive way to approach the members of your team. So for example, if I am a therapist and I have to figure out how to help kids be more successful in the curriculum, I need to understand at a high level and get a bird's eye view of what's going on in the building and in the district and understand what's going on in the curriculum in order to be able to do my job well. It's so important for us to understand our unique role in the process. So in that specific context, saying something is not my job is not always the most productive mindset to have. Now, on the contrary, there are times when it is beneficial to have the mindset of it's not my job. Some examples that I can include here are if you're scrolling through social media and you see somebody who says something extremely inaccurate about the way school systems work. Maybe they have no context for what goes on in the school systems, and they say something that's absolutely infuriating. It can be tempting to jump in on that post and school that person on why they're wrong. But in that particular situation, you are very unlikely to convince that person that they are wrong and change their mind. Likely, all you're going to do is start a dumpster fire and get yourself all worked up and devote a lot of emotional energy to something that really isn't going to have a lot of benefits for you. So, in that particular situation, I would say, no, it is not your job to convince random people on the internet that they're wrong. We know that we are working in a system that is very complex, and because of that, because there are so many moving parts, it can be very frustrating. We do have to be very clear on what is and isn't our job. And this comes down to understanding what we can and can't control. You, as a team member in your building, can control the way that you show up for your students and your colleagues, but you can't control the choices that other people make. So, for example, if you are in a situation where you're not necessarily an authority figure, you just hear somebody making some random inaccurate statement, that might not be a good use of emotional energy for you to correct them and jump in. Now, if you are in a situation where you are in a position of authority or in a position to be making some recommendations professionally, let's say that you are in a meeting with a parent and you want to make some recommendations about things that they can be doing at home, well, that is beneficial for you to try to explain some things if they do have inaccurate information. You are in a position to be able to help and educate in that situation, but you still cannot control what they do with that information. And this is really key with understanding where your job begins and ends. It is your job to provide accurate information in a kind and compassionate way. It is not your job to make someone do anything. It's their choice what they do with that information. So I think that when we think about this question of, is this my job? What is my job in this situation? Your job is to manage your own mindset, your beliefs, your attitude, and how you show up, as well as how you choose to respond to information and actions of others. Your job is not to control what other people think and do. That's up to them. And I think that when we are working in a system that has a lot of challenges and where we often feel like we're not in control, it is really important to understand where our job begins and ends. Thanks for listening, and whatever role you have in education, we have a podcast for you at bpodcastnetwork.com. Who among your friends and colleagues needs to hear this message today? Please share it with them right now.